Hi everyone. Um, so thank you for coming to hear what we've got to say today. My name is Kat Broomhead. I'm a managing partner at Spark Foundry, and we work with Asda.
And I'm Nick Primmer. I'm Senior Media Manager at Asda, looking after all things performance media for our online grocery proposition and for our fashion and home business across George.com. And we're delighted for you to be with us today to hear us talk about our experience of managing brand and performance direct response media across our Asda estate. We're really looking forward to sharing insight into our small success story from the past year.
So we've got a lot of content to go through, and when we are looking at this, what we need at the heart of the story is a dynamic duo.
Of course, so you've got to think about Lennon and McCartney,
Maybe Barbie and Ken.
or to explain the dynamic that plays out between brand and performance media, it's got to be none other than Woody and Buzz from Toy Story.
So Woody is your traditional Andy's favourite toy. He's tried, he's tested, you know what you're going to get, he's reliable.
Absolutely. And Buzz is new, he's shiny, he's technologically advanced, and most importantly, he only speaks in jargon which nobody else around him understands.
So with these two, they don't always see eye to eye, and there's quite a bit of conflict as they work out who is Andy's favourite toy.
But of course, they come to realize that only through combining the strengths of one another can they come together and achieve their shared objectives of getting back to Andy and the rest of the crew. And we just want you to keep this analogy in mind as we work through the talk for the rest of the session.
So the problem that we were working on for Asda, which is one that I'm sure you all would be very aware of, is the cost of living crisis is having a massive effect on consumers' spending power, but it's also increasing all of the costs. It's increasing the produce costs, the estate costs, the running costs. So everything's going up, and those two things combined make it really hard for us to achieve our brand objective, which is around maintaining or growing revenue and market share. And then what it also means is we've got a massive temptation that we're fighting from Asda about prioritising short-term return on investment, because obviously there's a lot of pressure to balance that bottom line with all of the costs coming out of the business.
Absolutely, and we know that tough decisions need to be made around investment, and marketing definitely has to play a role in this. And so in this tough economic environment, building the brand starts to become like something of a luxury, and it becomes really tempting to focus on lower funnel performance media where you can get, I missed the slide, apologies. Low funnel performance media where you have your immediate returns, you have sales metrics, and you have the opportunity to rapidly optimize. And the temptation to move investment into this channel and into the bottom of the funnel becomes extremely tempting indeed.
But it's a trap, and we know this, and I'm sure you guys have seen this time and time again. Brands that concentrate specifically on either brand or just performance, they don't bounce back from hardship as well. So this is looking at activity from the 2008 crisis and then with COVID as well. And the brands that had an equal measure of brand building and brand preference work, as well as the performance driving demand harvesting work, they're the ones that bounce back the most quickly and the most strongly. So this is what we really want to keep in mind. And you don't need to take our word for it. We've got Kantar obviously saying the same. And it's just really important to stay really front of mind so that people can think of you and choose you.
And to bring all of this really to home, we wanted to introduce you to the concept of the doom spiral, okay? And so with the doom spiral, we've already discussed, but you have this situation where the recession hits and consumers are less confident and they spend less, especially on non-essential items. This creates a situation where brands lack confidence in pushing at the top of the funnel. They move their investment to the lower end of the funnel, as we've discussed. And then what this also creates is a situation where if multiple brands are doing this, then there's more competition in the market and everybody's fighting for that smaller slice of the pie. Media becomes much more expensive and much less efficient. And so you may find yourself in a situation where, because you're not driving demand for your brand, there's reduced brand awareness, and you have to turn to other propositions in order to drive sales and orders. And I don't know if anybody here works in the fashion industry, but 2023 has definitely been the year of the markdown sale, I would say. And so as you get to the pointy end of the doom spiral, you may find yourself in a position where, with reduced brand awareness and reduced demand for your brand, you are trying to frantically harvest this ever decaying audience pool as the funnel begins to empty. And when you are at the bottom of the doom spiral, it's extremely difficult to get out of, but Kat's going to explain exactly how you can do that.
Yeah, so what we've been doing with Asda is there's three main areas that we can work on today. The first one is around convincing stakeholders of the value of a broader channel mix. So it can be quite tempting just to go for certain channels that you can see a direct response for, and that isn't what we want to do because of what we mentioned earlier. The second one is around measurement across the funnel. So if we are showing the value of every different step along the way, we need to make sure we're measuring it correctly. And the third one is around innovation and testing new formats and creative, because we know it's a very competitive environment. There's always people trying out new things, and we want to make sure we're ahead of the curve and things aren't getting stale and boring for our customers.
And just to step through each of these in turn, we're going to start with convincing stakeholders. And this is definitely working on the client side where I come in. And of course, there isn't one way that you can approach this, but there's multiple approaches. And what I've found from my experience over the years is that having these three things in mind is always really useful. And so firstly, be collaborative. So make it your business to actively engage with internal stakeholders. Make them, reassured that even though you're coming at things from a different angle, you both share the same objectives and the same goals. And then of course you will collaborate really closely with your agency, whether it's a creative agency, insights agency, or with a media agency. We work with Kat and the team every single day to do so. But then it's also really important, I think, to make sure that your internal stakeholders have the ability and have the option to link up with your external stakeholders too, and then just create that feeling of trust and that everybody's trying to do the right thing by the business. And then secondly, a bit of a philosophical one this, but be humble. Now, I've definitely had it thrown my way in the past that performance media is a dark art, right? So it's lots of metrics, it's lots of acronyms that people don't really understand. And I've seen some subject matter experts take this as a bit of a badge of honor. I'm the expert, leave it to me, I know what I'm doing. And while this can be tempting from an ego perspective, I know I've been there. Anyone else? No? Yeah, of course, yeah, one hand here, great. I feel that it does create barriers, right? And being collaborative and being humble is the best way to go. And then tied into this is around transparency. So if you have a gap in your measurement framework, let people know about it. If you have a gap in your strategy, let people know about it. Because sooner or later, you can try and blind them with some amazing metrics, but when it gets to the bottom line, they will uncover those gaps. So just be transparent and just let people know about it. And ultimately, nobody likes surprises, right? And especially when it's too late to do something about it. It's too late to change direction on the strategy, or it's too late to change your investment approach at the end of the financial year.
So when it comes to measuring across the funnel, no particular measurement type is perfect on its own. So what we use is we always use at least 3 touch points when we're looking at this for Asda. So the first one is MMM. So econometrics is fantastic for giving you a full picture of what's going on. It will also include insights that are out of category and other things that are happening. The context is built in. But we know it's also quite slow. You usually have to wait for the campaign to finish, the data to go over to the statisticians, them to run it and then present it back. So there can be a massive lag in finding out what's going on, which is obviously not good at all from a performance media point of view. So we also use multi-touch attribution, where we're looking at short-term efficiency, and this allows us to look, for example, we can look right now and see how Asda's doing on asda.com and make changes in real time, and that gives us a really good short-term view. What we also tend to find is quite often the answers between MMM and MTA might disagree slightly, and in these instances we like to think that the real answer is somewhere in the middle, so certain channels are favoured by one over the other. And then on the top of that we have, with Asda being a retail client, a particularly good environment where we can do controlled experiments. So we can look at bringing out certain media tests, for example, and look at what would happen. So we can look at geo-targeting to bring that, so a regional test, or we can just look at A/B testing, so we could just turn something live for a day, for example, and compare that to similar days to get a result. So those three different areas give us a proper measurement framework in order to see what's working when, and yeah, they don't always agree, and that's not something to be concerned about.
And then, of course, having a robust measurement framework allows us to test and learn with new formats and new types of creative. Now, we just wanted to highlight some of the wins that we've seen in bridging the gap this year between performance and with brand building formats. And so a lot of you will be familiar with these products, but we really leaned into Google Performance Max, or PMax, over this year. And we found that it's a great way to accelerate our paid search whilst also delivering engaging assets to our customers and to our potential consumers. And then Meta Advantage Shopping Plus campaigns have been also really successful for us. We found that it's a great way to bring people in again, but also focus at the bottom of the funnel. And then using TikTok for direct response. We're still definitely at the start of the journey here, but it's something that we're trying to get momentum with as we move through. And so I think the thing that all of these formats have in common is that they allow you to really tell visual stories with engaging creative, right? And they allow you to also utilize automated bidding, generating efficiencies and leading to what everybody wants, which is leads and sales.
Yeah, and we've had some really good results using these techniques. Previously, we have had a lot more silo between brand and performance, but because we've now done everything that we've discussed today, we've got a 38% increase in ROAS, which is fantastic, especially for a big brand like Asda. And then we've also got increased reach and impressions, so we're reaching more people more efficiently. So yeah, it sounds like a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference. And that's really just concentrating on the basics of generating that demand, contacting as many people as possible, making them want to find out more, driving it through to consideration, and then really having some smart performance media to harvest the demand at the end.
But like with any good story, we want to leave you with a bit of a cliffhanger and talk about some of the things that's still to go after today. So number one, we're not going to sit still on measurement. And when new data becomes available, we're going to jump on that immediately. When new measurement types become available, we're going to utilize this too, okay? We're also going to continuously optimize our test and learn roadmap. And then finally, coming back to that collaborative approach, which I've really labored today, is bringing the business on the journey with us and educating them around what we're doing and how it's impacting the bottom line. And so thank you for joining us today. We are going to have a Q&A after if anybody has any questions. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you found some useful tips in how you can take your brand across performance and brand building comms, and then ultimately take it to infinity and beyond. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to open up for Q&A, I think. Do we pass the microphone around? Is that the... Any takers? We have one at the front.
Well, firstly, thank you. When you said about collaboration in particular, internally within the organization, what's the one biggest hurdle that you've encountered, for example, to get people to collaborate when they are not from that background, if that makes sense?
Yeah, great question, thank you. I think the biggest challenge is, I work in it day to day, right? So I work with the guys. If there's a concept that I'm not completely familiar with, they can explain it to me really well. I think it's taking the knowledge that you gain and then trying to then break that down even further to exactly to your point, people who don't work in it day to day. And so we love analogies, right? We used quite a few of them today. We loved explaining things in threes as well. We did that quite a lot. And so I think just breaking it down and doing it that way. But then also, I think the things I touched upon in the presentation, having the ability to bring people in and really to say, you know what, let's just all throw around some ideas. You might be from the finance team. I love our finance team, believe it or not. But you might be from the finance team. These guys work in a media agency, but no ideas are bad, no questions are bad. It's a safe space for us all to come together and try and overcome some of the objectives or the hurdles that we have to achieve our objectives. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, cool.
Thank
So
you
any
very
other
much.
questions you want to grab us after? Thank you.